So we'll go on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, apologies please, Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from councillors Carstock, Eddy, Fowler, Cork, Graham, Overton, Rowe and Race.
Thank you, Claire. Do members... Oh, no, there's no urgent business that I'm aware of. Does any members have any urgent business I should be aware of? No. Okay. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members have any declarations of interest? Councillor Cross.
Director of Big Sky Ventures, so I won't be participating in that monitoring officer's report at the end. Not voting.
Thank you. Councillor McCloskey.
I'm Town Councillor in Cosney, which is where the Roundwell site is as
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Laidlaw.
Yes, Roundwell Park. I'm Town Councillor at Posse.
Thank you. And also myself as County Councillor for Posse and Roundwell. Thank you. Any more? Okay. Agenda item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of May 2024. I refer members to page 7. Can I sign these, or can they be signed as a true and accurate record? Can I have just a general show of hands, please, if you're happy, or nods, or... Thank you. Right, agenda item 5, Chairman's announcements. As you'll see, my engagements are on page 22 of the agenda. And I did go to Norfolk County Council Civic Reception, and at that event, they were promoting King's Awards, which I just want to mention. There's the King Awards for Voluntary Services, which opens on the 1st of September. So if you know of any voluntary groups in your area that do an amazing job, this is the award I'd recommend. There is also the King's Award for Enterprise, and the closing date is the 1st of September for that, and that is for businesses. There is 4 categories, which is innovation, international trade, sustainable development, promoting opportunity through social mobility. So if we have got some brilliant businesses in South Norfolk, so if you know any, just send them that way. You can basically search for it on Google and you'll find all the information. Right, my charities for this year is Cossey First Responders, which do an amazing job in the community, and not just Cossey, further afield. They need equipment, they have to pay for it, they're all volunteers. And the other one is MTM Youth Services, which help the youth, they help the young carers, they help with mental health, they do a list of things. So they are my 2 charities this year. So I'll be promoting what they do and hopefully raising funds. And also, I want to thank everyone for bringing in food for the food bank. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. It will be going to this time. If we do it again next time, it will go to another food bank in the district. So thank you. Right, on to agenda number 6. There are no petitions that I'm aware of. And then agenda item 7A, notice of a motion. Support the Climate and Nature Bill motion submitted by Councillor Chris Brown. This is on page 23 of the agenda. I'd like to invite Chris Brown to present the motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. Since the last meeting on the 20th of May, a lot seems to have changed in the world around us. But some things haven't changed. And the climate emergency and the nature crisis that we're living through have not gone away. They are just as important as they always were. Before Parliament stopped in May, there was the Climate and Nature Bill, a private member's bill before Parliament. I know some members here may well argue, well, that's fallen away since dissolution of Parliament, and therefore why are we discussing this? We're discussing this because the climate and nature are absolutely vital issues for our residents. And the Climate and Nature Bill that was before Parliament, and I'm sure will be again, is supported very widely. 384 councils support the Climate and Nature Bill, including Norwich and Broadland. 158 MPs in the current Parliament support the Climate and Nature Bill, including members from all parties, including 79 Labour MPs, and that list includes the Labour MP for South West Norfolk, Terry Jeremy. It includes Clive Lewis in Norwich South, Alex Sobel in Leeds, who actually was the sponsor of the Climate and Nature Bill in the last Parliament. It includes cabinet members in the new cabinet. So this bill is very widely backed, including Clive Betts, Diane Abbott, Louise Haigh, Liam Byrne, Barry Gardner, Rebecca Long Bailey. Senior Labour politicians are supporting this bill because they understand the importance of climate and nature. Now, my motion sets down what the climate issues are, very briefly, and what the Climate and Nature Bill would do. I won't go through that in detail because those members who were here back in October 2021 will have heard me speak about all of this when I proposed a motion to support the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill, as this bill then was back in 2021. And that motion wasn't discussed because apparently it was too many words for people to read. So this one is far more succinct and sets out exactly what this bill means. And we're not actually asking for this council to take any major actions. We're asking for this council to join the 384 other councils that have shown their support for this bill in showing our support for this bill, and in writing to our local MPs in support of this bill. Now, some of them, I know Adrian Ramsey, one of our new MPs, is supporting this bill. I didn't list Clive Lewis there, even though Norwich South covers part of South Norfolk, because he was one of the main sponsors of the bill previously and is supportive of this bill. That's why he wasn't listed there. But I want to make sure that all MPs in this area support this bill. The climate crisis and the nature crisis need to be tackled together, and that's what this bill is about. We need to bring people along with us. That's what's in this bill, having a climate and nature assembly to bring citizens along with us. Ensuring nobody is left behind, the fairness provisions in this bill would do that. So everybody can benefit from this. It would take account of our overseas footprint, reverse the decline in nature, not just stop it, reverse the decline in nature. And it would prioritise nature in all of our decision making. This is a crisis that isn't going away unless we, as local politicians, encourage our national politicians to take action on this and to support this bill in Parliament and to get the new government to take this seriously and push this through in Parliament, because this action cannot wait any longer. So I therefore propose this motion before you this evening.
Perfect timing there. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Brown? Councillor Waterbridge. Wateridge, sorry. Do you wish to speak now or reserve your rights? Continue then, please.
So thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Brown, for proposing this incredibly important motion. As I'm sure most of you are aware, our first and only until earlier this month, Green MP Caroline Lucas introduced this bill, the Climate and Nature Bill, back in September 2020. So it's been through various stages, as Councillor Brown pointed out, and a name change in both Parliament, and it's been into the Lords and back. So it's currently sitting as a private member's bill, again, as Councillor Brown pointed out, introduced by the Leeds North West Labour MP in March. So it's just sitting there waiting to be voted on with much cross-party support. We're very lucky and very thankful to the residents of Waveney Valley, of which, of course, South Norfolk is a part, that we now have Adrian Ramsey to fully endorse this bill. And I know that he would very much appreciate the support of the council here. Councils can and should lead by example. In East Anglia, again, as Councillor Brown pointed out, not only Broadland Council in December last year, but also our close neighbours, East Suffolk District Council, Norwich City Council, Distown Council, and also Cambridgeshire County Council have successfully passed the motion, joining 360 other councils across the country to formally support this bill. This is also a really crucial time for it to be passed, given that the King's speech on July the 17th failed to include the issue of biodiversity loss in the UK among the 14 new bills the Labour government introduced. The only real reference was to do with the biodiversity net gain mechanism, which is really just a drop in the ocean in the investment and plans needed for our hugely nature depleted country. It's refreshing and encouraging to see the new government making bold strides towards the 2030 net zero target, but very disappointing that the focus appears to be predominantly on the increasing demand and supply of energy, rather than the overriding link between climate change and dwindling biodiversity. From what I've seen and learnt from the excellent team of officers and members I've met so far, South Norfolk District Council seems to already be making impressive strides in attempting to reach net zero with regards either to new installations or retrofitting municipal and civic buildings with renewable energy systems, but so much more can and must be done, and crucially, we need funding from the new government to do it. Adrian Ramsey, our 3 other new Green MPs, and as previously stated, a whole host of other cross-party MPs will soon be pushing for this surely in Parliament. What reason can there be not to support them and pass this motion today in our council? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I now open this up to debate. If any members wish to talk on this, Lord Fuller.
Well, thank you. And of course, we all have sympathy with the sense of the debate, but I'm bound to say that when is a bill not a bill? A bill isn't a bill when it's fallen. And this bill does not exist. It fell before the election. And whilst I don't really want to disagree completely with Councillor Wateridge, it isn't just sitting there waiting to be voted on. It died before the election. So I do think that we do need to pause for a moment and wait to see what bills may come forward, in which case, you know, as a full council, we might want to support modified recommendations that are coming forward. But I think it places in an awkward situation to try and support something that really just does not exist anymore. But I'm bound to say, and I'm grateful for the points made about how our council is one of the most forward-thinking. Last year, there was an independent report from a national environmental organisation that placed South Norfolk Council as the most green in the whole of our county. Not only have we got an 86% reduction in energy use by moving to this building, a building so energy efficient, we've actually disconnected the gas. People can't believe it, but it's the truth. Converted all our swimming pools to air source heat pumping. The work we're doing on dry recyclables is clearly class leading, but it isn't just about those. Our green infrastructure with new footpaths and investments in the natural environment. Oh, I can't remember the name. There's one that goes from Mulbarton. It'll come to me in a minute. Lotus. We've got some of the best brains in our nation living locally, trying to sort out this low carbon conundrum, adding lightness. And of course, that's not to say away for the UEA, which has global recognition here. So we've got a lot of opportunities here. And my goodness, in this council, we're exploiting them for the benefit of the environment and the benefit for residents. But I can't support something because it makes us look stupid if it doesn't exist. I'm quite happy to support something when it does exist, but this doesn't exist. And I think it's very difficult to support it on that basis.
Thank you, Lord, for that. Councillor Rosen.
As ever, Lord Fuller has stolen half my speech. But yeah, I'll be maybe briefer as a consequence. So I think we all would acknowledge all the things that Councillor Brown and Councillor Walsh have put forward about the urgency of action. But sadly, the simple fact is this bill doesn't exist and we will look very foolish if we support it. I think there has been a lot of action by the new government already to move towards a cleaner, greener economy. And I think what we should do actually is we should wait to see what proposals come out. I mean, I have been at discussions which suggest that there will be some things that are going to be very positive and very pleasing to the people who put forward this motion. But I just think we need to wait until, as Lord Fuller says, we have something fresh on the table that we actually are going to have a relevant debate about. And I'm not going to support this motion for that reason.
Thank you. Councillor McConnell.
I'd just like to get back to the point. I know the 2 points made. Councillor Fuller said that he would support it in a different form, but I've been in my first district council meeting where Councillor Brown put about a climate emergency, and that wasn't supported. And I haven't, the idea, I go back to what Councillor Wateridge said, is an absolute reason not to show support for something, because in the times I've been in the council, there hasn't been a clear showing of support of green issues in this way. And okay, the bill might not be in this form, but surely by supporting this motion, we're showing the inclination of the whole council towards the ideology behind it, if not in its exact form, which seems to be the only argument is the form of this bill and does this bill exist. But in supporting it, we're showing a first stage and we're ready to go when it is reinstated. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Councillor McCloskey.
That's it. I just want to point out that it would be better if we were going to talk about things that we can do locally about climate change, would be for this motion to have included opposing the Norwich Western Link, because that is going to cut down hundreds of trees through the ancient woodland. It's going to destroy probably the Barberstow bats to the point where they won't exist anymore. And that isn't mentioned in here at all. I mean, this is very general, but if we specifically want to do something locally, then we should be looking at things that are going to devastate the climate.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Councillor Billing.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm sorry, but I think it's disingenuous to throw the Norwich Western Link into the pot as if it's some sort of evil doing. And the Norwich Western Link is something that is essential to Norfolk for its economic development. It'll also take traffic out of villages that are overrun by rat running. It'll take pollution out of the city, and it is an essential final piece in the Norwich Ring Road. And Norwich is one of the only cities that doesn't have a ring road. It will help people to get to hospital as well. So I think the council needs to be better informed about all the environmental concerns that have already been addressed on the Norwich Western Link, and the planning application is actually out to consultation at the moment, and I suggest she has a look on there and has her say, so that we can make an informed decision.
Thank you. Any more comments? I'll go back to you. Councillor Brown, do you have anything further to say?
Thank you, Chair. I will just respond to a couple of the points that were made. Yes, the Climate and Nature Bill fell away at the dissolution of Parliament in May. That didn't stop approximately 1,000 parliamentary candidates declaring their support for the Climate and Nature Bill during the general election, even though, according to what's said here, it doesn't exist. That didn't stop 79 currently sitting Labour MPs declaring their support for the Climate and Nature Bill after Parliament had dissolved. This would show our support for this bill, which I am absolutely certain will be coming forward again for this Parliament, particularly because the Labour government didn't include anything clearly in the King's speech around the climate and nature crisis. I hear the point that's made about, yes, but what about doing things locally? My nature crisis motion last year talked about doing things locally, but unfortunately, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in this room voted that down. And that talked about taking local action on nature. So that opportunity was there. So, I hear what's been said, but the Climate and Nature Bill, if you want to look on zerohour.uk, it shows the tens of thousands of people, the hundreds of organisations, the hundreds of MPs, the hundreds of local councils who are backing the Climate and Nature Bill. They all understand the importance of the climate and nature. It cannot wait any longer. We need to show our support along with those others tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. We now go to the vote. Can I ask for everyone to raise their hands for the motion, please?
Chairman. 15.
All those against?
Chairman.
And anybody abstaining? Unfortunately, the motion's not carried as it's 19 against. Thank you. On to the next motion, 7B, which is support bleed control kits. Motion submitted by Councillor Gary Blundell. The motion's on page 24 of the agenda. Oh no, it's item 24. I'd like to invite Councillor Gary Blundell to present the motion, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and I won't take up too much of the time because I think this motion is quite self-explanatory. Tragically, Raymond James Quigley, who was from Wymondham, was fatally stabbed in Ipswich Town Centre on the 17th of January 2023 in broad daylight. One of these kits could possibly have saved his life. Working with Raymond's mum, who has slowly been pushing these kits out around Norfolk, we have put together the motion you have before you today. Severe bleeding is life-threatening that can result in death within minutes if not promptly managed. And I'm not just talking about a stabbing incident. It could be a road traffic accident, an accident on a farm, or any similar incident. Bleed control kits, much like defibrillators, provide essential equipment for the public to use in emergency situations to take control before emergency services arrive. Birmingham was the first council to roll these out across its area back in June 2020, but as far as I'm aware, no Norfolk-based council has currently rolled these out to provide them in all publicly accessible buildings under its remit. Knife crime is on the rise, not only in London, but all over the UK. These kits have been proven to save lives and are a critical addition to community safety infrastructure. These kits are supported by NARS, the Norfolk Accident Rescue Service, and I feel supporting the installation of bleed control kits across South Norfolk is a vital step towards enhancing community safety and emergency preparedness. By raising awareness, committing to installations, securing funding and evaluating the initiative, we can ensure that South Norfolk is well equipped to handle severe bleeding emergencies and other emergencies in the area, potentially saving even just one life. For information, the kits cost approximately £108 for the kit itself, but for the cabinet, which is much like a defibrillator cabinet, this rises to £355 to £475. Obviously, it all depends on where we look for these kind of kits. I so move this motion presented to you today at Council.
Do you have a second, Councillor Blundell? Councillor Mitchell, would you like to speak now or reserve your right?
I'd like to speak now, if possible, please. And I totally and utterly support the proposal here. Having experience of bleed and people bleeding out, it's not a nice thing to have to deal with, and if you don't respond quickly, you will lose the person very quickly. As Councillor Blundell has pointed out, for a small amount of money, and I would say to all of you councillors, maybe £100 out of your personal budgets, go and find somewhere in your villages that can put these in. The £100 one can easily go in the box with the defibrillator, very easily. And if you need the big box, £400 for a life, you know. But also talk to your villages, talk to your parish councils, see if we can get them all over South Norfolk a really real easy way. Certainly put them into all of our public buildings in that South Norfolk run, and we can easily. I understand that all of the staff in the leisure centres have to go undergo training on a yearly basis to keep their first aid up, and adding this to it will be an easy way to get them fully trained as well. So I 100% support it. So if we can get it out to more villages and more venues across the district, the better, and the sooner the better as well. Thank you, Chair.
I will now open this motion up to debate. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Councillor Rodwitz.
Thank you, Chair. I support this motion for Councillor Bundell. I also have experience, though. I'm a private first responder, so I spend most of my weekend evenings around Prince Wales Road. So you can imagine I see the injuries that these kids can help with. Just give you an idea of the risk of the time scales. Severe catastrophic bleed will not be reversible, between 3 and 5 minutes. So you're going to lose a life in that. Your current ambulance waiting times. So I'll give you 2 I know of. My own home area, NR18, you're going to wait 11 minutes. You've gone outside your 5-minute window. That's on a Cat 1. For this building here, 15 minutes. So you can see the fact is that realistically, the way things are with ambulance services at the moment, which do a very great job, there's no way in the world sometimes they're going to make catastrophic bleeds in time. So these kits will save lives in the right places. So I think fully supportive of what they're going to do and what the use is for.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to say anything? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour of the motion? Okay. That's the quickest lot of hands I've seen go up for a while. I think that's unanimous, including myself. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, recommendations from the Cabinet arising from the meetings held on 10th of June and 8th of July. I would like to refer members to the recommendations to be considered on page 25. Obviously, there will be an exempt piece which will be discussed further on. So 8A, report of the task and finish group, strategic key performance indicators. I refer members to papers at page 26, and I would like to ask the leader to present the recommendations from Cabinet, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I made a promise last council meeting that I wouldn't speak unnecessarily, and as nearly all the work here has been done by scrutiny in the task and finish group, I will simply commend them and thank them for their work and leave any of them to comment on it should they wish to.
Any comments from anybody? No? Councillor Sachs.
I really do need to just offer my thanks to the officers who presented on every single area of work in the council during our examination of the KPIs. And it did reveal a few weaknesses in the way we monitor our services. So this is a small step into progressing things so that we get an understanding of what works and what doesn't. There are some big gaps in the way that we monitor our services, but I think they're not necessarily easy to repair. So just to say it was a very useful exercise, and again, thanks to all the officers who spent quite a lot of time preparing presentations for them and digesting all the comprehensive nature of their services.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. One of the things that did come out in Cabinet that was really interesting, or I found really interesting, was the fact that it was recognised that the council doesn't shout loud enough about all the good work that they actually do. And although we get performance indicators, that they're not shared out across the district. Yeah, I'd like to say thank you and well done to everybody who worked on it.
Okay, then we'll go to the vote. Obviously, you've seen the recommendations in the paperwork. So, all those in favour, please raise your hands. That's unanimous. Okay, we're going to 8B now, South Norfolk Local Development Scheme. I refer members to the papers at page 36 of the agenda paper. I'd like to ask Councillor Overton-Neal to present the recommendations from Cabinet, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We should all be used to seeing the local development scheme come before us. This is a timetable for all local plans and documents. Today we've got it before us, and it covers the South Norfolk Village Clusters Housing Allocation Plan and other proposed supplementary planning documents, which include the East Norwich Supplementary Planning Document and the South Norfolk Design Code. There is a change of a 1 month delay to the forecast adoption timetable for the village clusters plan, and the local development scheme is updated to reflect the Regulation 19 consultation on the pre-submission addendum. This addendum contains the proposed changes to the plan, and it's likely to start in August and continue until September. And it's now anticipated that the East Norwich supplementary planning document will be finalised in February 25, and the South Norfolk Design Code and Greater Norwich Self and Custom Build document in July of 2025, and the Greater Norwich Green Infrastructure document in September and October 25, and the Sustainable Communities document in December 25. So these are all the documents that are included in our local development scheme. It is a legislative requirement that the council has a local development scheme, and we have to keep it up to date, even if there's very small changes. So the paper in front of us provides more detail on all of the above items to be updated in the LDS, and I would endorse the recommendation for council to approve the proposed changes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any comments from councillors? Councillor Brown.
Thank you. Just very briefly say, yes, we've had this before us many times, and the time periods has changed slightly, but I know this council and the officers here have done a huge amount of work. You know, the Greater Norwich local plan is finally in place, but a huge amount of work on the village clusters. And yes, there's tiny slippage here, but I know for my communities in my ward, where there are 3 more sites in the latest village clusters update, and many sites across my ward, it's really important that we get some real clarity on what is agreed and what isn't agreed, and that this gets progressed as quickly as possible. And I know the officers are working really hard, and not just on the village clusters, but also things like the self and custom builds, SPD, which to most people might not mean a lot, but I know there's planning applications coming through already, and this really needs some clarity around it. So grateful for all the great work that's happening, and looking forward to seeing this progress to completion.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to? Councillor Cross.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm just quite interested in the South Norfolk Design Code aspect, and I'm pleased to see that according to the schedule that will be adopted ahead of the village clusters. We had the South Norfolk members workshop a couple of weeks ago, and it's sort of abundantly clear that a design code is very much needed. And there was also a Case for Design Codes webinar last week held by the Government's Office of Place, which I joined in. That was extremely informative, giving indications of design codes in other areas of the country, which give a bit more of a prescriptive requirements for their new developments. And it gives planners more certainty and ability to make faster decisions, and there's less revisions of plans and negotiations, etc. And it raises the design quality, and that I think is really important, especially with the village clusters, that there is a design quality that reflects the rural settlements that they're going into. Yeah, going forward, I think, you know, they need to blend in seamlessly with their surroundings in our rural villages. Thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on the recommendations? Okay, Councillor Overton-Hill, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
We'll go to the recommendation is that you've seen, so we're going to go to the vote. Everybody in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hands. Unanimous. That is unanimous, thank you. Okay, going on to 8C, Housing Allocation Policy Review. I refer members to the papers at page 64, and I will ask Councillor Minshaw to present the recommendations from Cabinet, please.
Thank you, Chair. This was given a very in-depth review and look over at Cabinet, and I was particularly indebted to Councillor Rowe and the scrutiny for comments that came from there. Over the last year, we've seen an increase year on year of 10% in requests for properties, and it's only going to go up. We know that. The level of families within the band 2 or households within the band 2 at the moment is 430 families, so quite a large demand coming online. I'm pleased to say that we have got a large amount of housing coming online in the next year, and I had a report came through from the officer today to tell me just how well that is going. We also have Clare House for temporary accommodation, although we use that obviously as a last resort. Moving on, the major changes are on page 67 of the report, and I think that's just about all I need to say, but obviously happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, would members, well, it's members' turn to make their comments known. Councillor McCloskey.
I'm on the committee that we discussed it in great detail, but what I didn't realise till I read it last week was that there's a whole criteria to do with room sizes. And I put forward a proposal to Richard Dunsire about that. He's come back to me with a reply, which I haven't even had to go through yet, but it was very complicated of why what I suggested wouldn't work. So I would like, though, to call him. I'm quite happy to support this motion as it stands, because I think that the amendments that I'm talking about can be done without it coming to council. But I would like to have another meeting of the Communities Committee to specifically discuss the issue about room sizes and what he's raised in his reply to me, if that's okay.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Rosen.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to think about asking you this question later on, actually. But I think actually now is a good moment to do it, because it's part of an overall picture. So we know that there's a crisis in prison capacity. We know that one of the proposals that both the last government and the new government have made is that prisoners with good behaviour will be released early, and that may be brought in as of September. We also know that one of the biggest problems with prisoners being released early and rehabilitation, which we're all wanting to see happen, is when prisoners don't go to secure good housing and fall back into old ways, or end up even worse, being homeless. And I know this is probably something you've had some thoughts about. I would really be pleased if you could elaborate on those. I don't see them in the policy at the moment. I see reference to care leavers and all sorts of people who are similarly leaving the care of the state. But I think it'd be quite interesting to hear your thoughts and see what we could do about making a specific commitment to try and support the rehabilitation of prisoners through allocation of housing, and how we might support that.
Are you able to answer that now, or I'm just asking?
Well, I'm happy to cover a few points, and then I'll send you a more detailed message later on, if that's all right with you. So, yeah, we understand from September this will be happening, but we don't know numbers yet, or what the local impact will be, and we will need to understand who the cohort are, the intended releases at the earliest possible opportunity. And of course the work will include probation and the prison services to access priority need, and each case will be utterly unique. Some offenders will not immediately need local housing, but we'll need to use our temporary accommodation officer. As I mentioned before, Clare House is now operational, and that will help us, and we are in a really good position. We also work really closely with social housing providers who specialise in ex-offenders, such as Purfleet and Kings Lynn, and Solo Housing in Diss. They do fantastic work. They put them into a hostel when they come out, they get them ready, then they move them into accommodation with another housing association. So we're already ahead of the game there about how to respond to that. But obviously after the allocation, we need to make sure that the tenancy management is there, working with our colleagues in housing associations and basically we need to make sure that we prevent reoffending. So yeah, working with councils, local providers will be, you know, such as Saffron, Orbit, Orwell, all of the group, and the probation services, DWP, and any other organisations that are relevant. If the prison leavers is exceptionally high, we will need to work on additional solutions. Accommodation on a short-term basis, it will be the major problem, because if you've suddenly got a whole chunk of people just arriving, it's going to be a major problem. Hopefully the government have thought this through, and they will put it out to us before just dumping them on us. So yeah, hopefully we can get this this resolved, and you know, many of them are going to be highly vulnerable, so we need to make sure that we make sure that they get the best possible service, but also we care for our residents as well. Hopefully that will answer your question.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to that in writing at some point.
Yeah, I'll get it to you.
When you've got a moment.
Yeah.
I do have another question, if that's all right.
As long as you're quick.
You'll be quick. It was about the Appendix 1, home options partner landlords, and I'm just interested into what criteria is used to become a home options partner landlord, because I see at least one of those that I know currently is involved in some disputes with tenants involving repairs to properties, where I think personally, I think the housing association is in breach of its obligations. And I'm wondering what we do about making sure that if you're one of our partner landlords, you do actually operate to the highest standards, particularly around damp, flooding, getting rid of mould, those sorts of issues. If you could answer that, or I'll go for a written answer if you can't do it now.
I haven't got the actual answer in front of me, so if you're happy with that, I'll provide you with a written answer as soon as I possibly can.
Trevor's going to help you.
Chairman, if I could, really to pick up on the general point, clearly the council takes very seriously the standard of accommodation that we use or anybody is in, and if members are aware of any challenges around accommodation, I would absolutely encourage you to report that to Richard Dunsire and the team, so that we can make sure no residents of South Norfolk are living in unsuitable conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Rosen.
I will clarify that the particular instance I know is not a South Norfolk resident, it's actually a Breckland resident.
Okay, are there any more questions about the housing policy before we go to the vote? Okay, we'll go to the vote then. Everybody for the housing policy, please raise your hands. Unanimous? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going on to agenda item 9 now. Adoption of the, is it Taysborough? I want to pronounce this right, thank you. Neighbourhood plan. I refer members to report at page 173. And I want to ask Councillor Overton Neil to introduce the report, please.
Thank you very much. As you say, this neighbourhood plan is for Taysborough. It's commenced in 2020 when it was submitted to South Norfolk Council. It was then submitted to South Norfolk Council in the July of 23. The neighbourhood plan has been prepared by a steering group of community representatives and parish councillors on behalf of Taysborough Parish Council. It has gone through the relevant processes of consultation and examination by an inspector. South Norfolk Council considered the examiner's recommendations at its cabinet meeting on the 18th of March 24 and issued a decision statement detailing the council's intention to send the neighbourhood plan to a referendum, subject to a few modifications being made as recommended by the examiner. Following issuing this decision statement, details of the referendum were published and the referendum was held on the 2nd of May 24. The result of the referendum was a successful one, with 85% of those voting doing so in favour of the neighbourhood plan. So tonight the council is being asked to agree to formally adopt the Taysborough neighbourhood plan, so it will now form part of the statutory development plans for South Norfolk and be used alongside existing local plan documents in the determination of planning applications that fall within the neighbourhood plan area of Taysborough. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Would any councillor like to speak on this report, please? Okay, we'll go straight to the vote then. All those in favour of the neighbourhood plan, please raise your hands. That's unanimous. Okay, item 10, the monitoring officer report. You should have obviously also received an extra bit. Okay, and I'd like to invite the leader to speak, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll go through the various recommendations in rough order, but I will start with two rather than one and say, following the last meeting of the council, Councillor Elliott has stepped back as a director of Big Sky, and I'm very pleased to say that Councillor Laidlaw has provisionally accepted, subject to this meeting, to take on the role of director of Big Sky Ventures Limited. Councillor Laidlaw has had a long-standing interest in the governance of Big Sky, and I'm sure will be an absolute asset to the scrutiny and governance of the company going forward. It's also that my hope that by making an appointment to a member not of the governing party, it will allay some of the concerns that have previously been raised in this chamber about the scrutiny that goes alongside Big Sky Ventures. The first recommendation regarding the appointment of directors to the two new companies, Big Sky Teckle and Big Sky something.
That's a new one.
I'm going to withdraw for today anyway. Following conversations with group leaders today, we've decided that due to the broadly administrative nature of those posts, we are going to recommend those be officer appointments rather than member appointments. So we will return with that in due course. The appointment of Councillor Lisa Overton-Neal to the Norfolk Rams Board, which is the Norfolk Recreational Impact Avoidance and Mitigation Strategy, is also set out in the papers, as is the addendum report on the procedure for conducting internal statutory reviews of homeless decisions, the amendments of which were discussed at recent Cabinet. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Would any councillors wish to speak? Lord Fuller.
I'd like to welcome the appointment of Councillor Laidlaw. He's always shown a huge amount of interest in this. I think it'll be a great addition to the Board of Directors. I am the shareholders' representative, and in conjunction working with the Chief Executive, insofar as the non-executive directors have been concerned, there was a public advert, and it has been suggested to me that two outside people could serve as non-exec directors. I've met them both online, and I won't give the names because they haven't accepted yet, but one of them has worked at a very senior position in a public limited company, in the accountancy position. The other is an acknowledged expert in infrastructure finance, again for a public limited company. Well, the ability of Big Sky to attract people of this calibre, including Councillor Laidlaw, I think is a feather in our cap. And I think importantly, it maintains the separation of duties between the shareholder and the operational side of the business. And we still, 10 years after inception, are still the gold standard by which we are structured and accountable with those separations of duty. And that's important to have confidence, not in the public's mind, but also to make sure we have the best quality decision making. So I'm happy to endorse it, but I think it would have been helpful for members to know that the non-exec team is being strengthened as well with some excellent candidates.
Would any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McConnell.
It's just a question really about the addendum. In 2.1, the removal about the licensing committee, it was just whether you could explain what the role of the licensing committee used to be, why that used to be there, why it's being taken out, and is there anything taking its place?
Can someone?
I'll defer to Councillor Mitchell on this one, as this is his area.
Councillor Mitchell. Would you like to answer? Okay. Oh, can you not?
I'm sorry, I haven't had
Oh, hold on. Emma can. We'll go to Emma.
I'll give it a go, Councillor McConnell. So previously in homeless reviews, the licensing committee would get involved potentially where there are appeals, and that was on a rotation basis. With the introduction of the new scheme that's been introduced, that's no longer required. So that element, as the strike through, has come out of the Constitution. However, I'm just looking at Mike and making sure I get this right. He'll shake his head if I get it wrong. There will still be officer review of those decisions to make sure that it's equitable and fair across the board. So there will still be officer review, but it won't be on the appeal stage because that's changed within the process.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very small question as well about the change to the Constitution, which all looks fine apart from one small point. On page 189, there's deletion of a section around the shareholders' representative at its annual general meeting will be appointed, and the deletion of would normally be the leader of the council. But then at the top of page 190, it mentions shareholders' representative, the member, usually the council leader, is still kept there. I wondered if that was intentionally still left there or whether that one should be struck out as well.
I'll strike that one out also. Thank you, Councillor Brown.
So is there anything further from councillors? Okay, I've been asked to do this in 3 lots. So the first thing, 2 lots. Others together. Right, okay. So we are doing point 2 and 3, which is to appoint Councillor Terry Laidlaw and to delegate authority to the monitor officer as 1 vote. So can we all vote yes? Right, Emma? Yep. Right, so can you all raise your hands for, please? Is that unanimous? Okay, thank you. And then the next is going to be, next we strike off one, so that's going to be confusing now. Yeah, 4, 5 and 6. So we're voting on the last lot of recommendations. So if you could all raise your hands in favour of the recommendations, please. You all look confused now, but yeah. Okay, that's unanimous, thank you. He wasn't on then. Right, we're going to item 11, questions to chairman and portfolio holders. So 11A, would any councillor like to ask a question to the leader or any portfolio? Oh, quick in there, Councillor Easter. Councillor Easter.
I'd like to ask the leader a question. Could you give us an update on South Norfolk House, please?
I'd be very happy to. I'm assuming the monitoring officer is going to ask if I'd be happy to defer, if you'd be happy to defer receipt of your answer until we're in closed session, though.
Correctly assumed, leader.
Any other councillor? Oh, Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the leader. In the last meeting, he raised the point that we were expecting a report back shortly regards planning enforcement. That was back in May. This was in relation to a question that was raised by Councillor Gary. I forgot his surname, it's just gone straight on my head. Blundell, thank you. Regards Cossey, but there are similar long-term issues regards planning enforcement in Windham and in Spooner Row. So just a question, has the leader now got that report and can he update all members regards its contents, please?
Thank you very much. I think a couple of those specific enforcement issues have moved forward slightly since the last meeting, but regarding the specific issue of enforcement going forward, I have a meeting with the head of planning this Wednesday, I think, after which I will update council.
Anybody else? Councillor Webber.
Yeah, a question for the leader. In December last year, Council agreed to appoint an independent person to the Finance, Resources and Governance Committee. I wonder if the leader could let me know who is leading the recruitment exercise, what progress has been made to date, and when you expect to bring a decision for ratification to council.
My understanding is that the recruitment is complete, although I haven't been leading it. I'm not sure whether it would be the chairman of FRAG as the most appropriate answer, or the cabinet member for finance, or the monitoring officer.
I'm getting pointed at by the portfolio holder and the chair of FRAG. So to update members, we did go out to advert and we had some applications in. There was one person that we would like to offer the role to. We're just waiting on that appointment, as she has also applied for, and I put in quotes, a proper job with the council as well. And if she were to be successful in that role, she wouldn't be able to be the independent person. So we're just waiting for that application to work its way through. If she is successful in that job, she obviously can't be an independent person. We will need to go back out to advert again. And I would propose to do that in September after the summer months when people are looking again, and I'll look at broadening it potentially through some other networks this time around as well. It's always a difficult role to appoint to.
Thank you very much.
Councillor G. Blundell.
Thank you, Chair. This is a question for Councillor Graham Mitchell. Recently we went and visited and obviously had the opening of Clare House, which I felt was a very impressive building. Can you give me an update whether or not that is now finished, and have any residents actually moved in, and how are they finding it, please?
I can say that it's finished, and they were putting the furniture in only a couple of days ago. On election night, I ended up having to crawl in there because the door was left open and lock it up. So I know full well that it's finished, and it's finished to, as you saw, a very, very high standard. I'll look to Mike Pursehouse at the back there to tell us if we've got our first residents or not yet. Run.
Thank you, Councillor. So there'll be residents moving in there on Thursday this week onto the East Wing, and the whole unit will be filled up in the first week of August.
Councillor Weber, did you have another question? Because you did raise your hand. Yes.
Didn't quite hear. Yes, I did. It's a question for Councillor Overton Neil. I think she's expecting it. A resident contacted me regarding an article in the latest Link magazine talking about upgrading, what do you call them? Put sewage tanks and for treatment plants. Unfortunately, the article talked about gave a link, and the link didn't have any further information on it. We had an update today from Phil Courtier, which was very helpful, but I would like to ask how many septic tanks have been upgraded under the scheme so far, and what is the timetable for implementation of that across the relevant catchment areas in South Norfolk. And also finally, I'd just like to know how the information in Link went wrong.
How many septic tanks so far? Approximately 20 tanks have been converted to date. Obviously, it's really only, the project has only really just started, so that's really good, I think, for the time they've been working on it. The timeline it's difficult. It's just an estimated that there's over 12,000 septic tanks in the Norfolk catchment area, because they have to be in the catchment area. And at present, Norfolk Rivers Consortium is converting at most one per day. So therefore, it is a long-term programme. And they don't have any fixed dates, because I know you did ask about when work would start in your sort of ward, Melbarton and Stoke Holy Cross, but they don't have any fixed dates for when work is going to be starting in which area. And why was the information incorrect? Norfolk Environmental Credits has led the nutrient neutrality agenda in the region, and worked with Norfolk Rivers Consortium to set up this programme of work. And it was just an oversight, and understandably an oversight, that their link was used and not the Norfolk Rivers Consortium contact details. But I have been assured now that if anyone contacts Norfolk Environmental Credits and is being directed to the consortium's website or phone number to be able to register their interest in this scheme.
Thank you very much. Can I just double check, are those 20 tanks in South Norfolk?
Yes, I believe. No, they're not. Do you know where they're?
Those tanks are all in the village of Upgate, in Swannington, in Broadland, but very soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, some tanks will be converted in South Norfolk as well.
Because you obviously have to realise that the Norfolk Environmental Credits is, you know, several district councils' joint company.
Councillor McConnell. This is for the Wellbeing and Health Partnership, and I just wanted to make a couple of points and ask a question. In the last meeting, Councillor Carsack said that the Right Care, Right Person initiative was not within the remit of South Norfolk Council, and I'd like to make the point that we will all have members in our wards who will have acute mental health issues, and I think we should be more concerned and take responsibility about Right Care, Right Person, which is now in place. And the questions I had were, what specific training has taken place in the control room to address emergency health calls, and what additional actual spaces for assessment centres in places like Helsden have been introduced to address this issue, bearing in mind that there's still no sign of any finance to support the initiative.
I think this is more, like I said, a county issue. I don't think anyone's going to be able to, I don't know
if anyone was going to be able to answer it would be Councillor Carsock, who I'm sure will be happy to provide a written answer. And whether the written answer is simply ask county, I don't know, but I'm sure she'll be happy to provide an answer when she returns.
Councillor Rosen.
Yeah, sorry, can I just come back to the issue that Councillor Roberts raised to some degree? It was about enforcement on planning, and in particular, you know that we built into the budget for this year, we built in some extra capacity to deal with specifically enforcement around developments and their effect on flooding. And I think that's particularly an issue in one of the instances that Councillor Roberts referring to in Wyndham. And obviously, you know, we made those decisions back in March, we're now in July, we're in the dry season, hopefully, although that doesn't feel like it. But before we get to the autumn, what is the extra capacity going to be that we've budgeted for that is going to make sure that we are in a position to address the concerns of residents that they are being flooded because of developers not delivering the schemes as designed, which is one of the issues we've seen, or ditches not being maintained. You know, I know we have a ditch walker, very unusual, and we did agree to fund that and see what the impact was. I think that, you know, we're now 4 months since we agreed this in the budget, and I think it'd be really great if in your meeting on Wednesday, Daniel, you could find out what the progress is and give us a report before we start getting complaints from residents that their gardens and homes and cellars and garages are full of water again.
No, I'm very happy to do that, and I think both myself and Councillor Overton Nil have been very clear that we would like to see a return on the investment that this council has made in enforcement. Councillor Overton Nil.
Regarding you mentioned with flooding and what have you, yes, we've budgeted a specific amount, and can assure you that we have the, as you call her, the ditch walker, very unfortunate name, but that is kind of like what we all sort of refer to, Kate. But she was on a temporary 1 year contract that has been extended. Her hours have also been increased, and I believe that they are doing more training of like enforcement, if you like, call it enforcement things on riparian rights and bits and pieces. Nick Howard is looking, he is quite confident, he thinks that the antisocial behaviour policy and act that we recently have adopted, that he may be able to use that, because basically if you don't clear your ditch properly and it's causing a property to be flooded, that is antisocial. So he was looking at that for me. But yes, so it is being worked on, and the money is being spent in the right way.
Okay, and the last question. I'll let you go in a minute, Chris. Councillor Blundell.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair. This is a question to the leader. Obviously, when I first became a councillor on this council, I put a motion forward for the council to look at more regulatory and ratings for tattoo parlours. And our then leader, Lord Fuller, kindly requested it went to a committee to be looked at and possibly restructured. I don't believe this has ever actually happened, or if it has, could the leader let me know which committee it went to, because I haven't seen it, and it would be nice if we could move this forward after it's been, over a year now, please.
Thank you. I don't actually know, but I am very happy to ask the monitoring officer if it hasn't, could she recommend a committee now, and whilst we're in the room we can ask the chairman of said committee to add it to their agenda post haste.
Of course you can, leader. Just bear with me 1 second. Talk about being put
Licensing
on the
is being
spot.
suggested at this end of the table.
I'm possibly, but it depends if it's policy development. Bear with. Hold on. So I think we. What one should I pick? We can go for that one. Do you think? If it does licensing, no, because they do that there. I'm going to give two options, and then I will confirm in writing which one. It could go to licensing, or it could go to planning and economic growth, which fits in that portfolio holder. So either or, but I will double check the terms of reference and then inform the chair of that committee that we'll put something on the work programme.
That's how you do it. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. It's not actually a question, I just wanted to make a very quick comment. Firstly, thank you to Councillor Overton-Neal for replying to my question at the last council meeting on the EV charging use. That was really helpful. And my question to Councillor Kiddy, an officer has confirmed that this council is still supporting recycling centres and paying our parish councils. There was just a delay in payments to some of the parishes, but we are still supporting those recycling centres, which is brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that back up, Councillor Brown. I would make the point that the policy about paying people for glasses, absolutely, as you say, and hasn't been lifted. We still have 93 separate glass banks across the district. Sadly, the officer who was in charge of the payments was off on medical grounds. So if anybody out there, any councillor has got a group who, for whatever reason, hasn't been paid, could you come back to me and I'll see it. But I think everything should now be up to date. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on now. 11B, Scrutiny Committee. Obviously, Councillor Rowe is not here, so if you have any questions, please ask Councillor Gaylord. Do we have any questions for scrutiny? Oh, Councillor Gaylord, would you like to say anything?
Just very briefly, I think that scrutiny has been successfully operating this year. We've had from call in, I think the first call in for a long time, and I'm like to pay tribute to Councillor Rowe's chairmanship of that committee. I think it has moved forward very strongly in the last year. So thank you.
Thank you. 11C, Licensing Committee. Any questions to Councillor Easter, please? No? Councillor Easter, would you like? No? Okay. 11D, Development Management Committee. Any questions to Councillor Thompson? Hold on. Any questions? Councillor Thompson, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would, Chair, thank you. You may or may not be aware, members, that we operate every 4 weeks for Development Management Committee. So we have 13 meetings in a year, and July was the one where we had 2. But due to the election, we've only got one on the 31st. So the one on the 3rd was cancelled, and it was cancelled because it was election time.
Okay, moving on. Item 12, feedback on outside bodies. You should have a report from Councillor Corsack on the Health and Wellbeing Board. I'd just like members to note that, please. Okay, going on to item 13, exclusion of the public and press. Propose that under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following reports involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1, scheduled 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. Are all members happy for this to happen?